Allen Lund Company, 47 years young and a proud sponsor, wishes OOIDA all the best as you celebrate 50 years.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Reddick.
The Federal Highway Administration is taking nominations for a new advisory board that could help the agency toward an entirely new system for funding highways. I'll discuss that, plus the latest on the Speaker of the House and more with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Christmas is more than 10 weeks away, but preparations for the U.S. Capitol Christmas tree ceremony are in full swing now. 2 Werner drivers will do the honor of picking up the tree and delivering it to Washington, D.C., while 2 others will do the honor of delivering dozens of smaller Christmas trees to service members stationed at Joint Base Andrews. We'll catch up with all 4 to talk about their upcoming experience. And finally, load-to-truck ratios increased for all 3 equipment types last week. Landline Now's Ashley Blackford has the latest details on what the spot market looks like as shippers and retailers close out the third quarter. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. The Department of Transportation held a meeting on Tuesday with the Advisory Committee on Human Trafficking. Landline Now's Ashley Blackford starts us off.
In an effort to combat human trafficking, the advisory committee met this week. During that meeting, Maha Al-Khatib, who is an alternate designated federal officer in the Office of International Transportation and Trade at the U.S. DOT, provided an overview of the department's current anti-trafficking efforts.
So at DOT, we've been working with public and private sector stakeholders since 2012 to empower transportation employees and the traveling public to recognize and report possible instances of human trafficking. So human trafficking, as you all know, is a global issue, with children and adults of all genders being exploited through human trafficking in every part of the world. According to the ILO, 27.6 million people, or 3.5 out of every 1,000, were victims of human trafficking in 2021. And that includes 77% through forced labor and also 23% through commercial sexual exploitation. Their average trafficking situation is over a year, 15.4 months, and the majority of forced labor victims are male, and the majority of commercial sexual exploitation are women and girls.
We will have more from this meeting on tomorrow evening's show. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. The number of orders for Class 8 trucks spiked last month. That's according to ACT Research, which says nearly 37,000 orders were placed in September. That's up 67% compared to a month earlier. These are preliminary numbers. The final numbers come later this month. September generally marks the start of truck order season, and ACT says the latest data show it's off to a strong start. You've driven on them, and a new study ranks them. Using data from the Federal Highway Administration, computing solutions provider GTAC is calling out the roughest roads in the United States. These are roads that are quite literally rough, as in not smooth, and Rhode Island wins the honor of having the roughest. The study says the state has 45 miles of roughness per 1,000 miles, or a total of more than 600 miles of roads that are in rough or very rough condition. Connecticut and West Virginia round out the top or bottom 3, as it were. Rough roads matter, the study says, because they can lead to vehicle damage and unsafe conditions and slow down delivery times. We have yet another acquisition to tell you about. This one is within the manufacturing sector. In a news release, Hendrickson said it was acquiring Brunner International along with Brunner Manufacturing and Sales, which manufacture components for the commercial vehicle, bus, and trailer markets. Terms of the deal were not announced. The state of Texas is investing in its ports. Governor Greg Abbott announcing recently that the Texas Transportation Commission has approved about $240 million for 31 ports across the state. The money will go toward the construction of truck queuing areas, dock rehabilitation and expansion, and rail expansion. Moves officials say will ultimately benefit the supply chain in Texas and beyond. Enforcement officials in Colorado are gearing up for winter. The Colorado State Patrol is holding 2 chain check events on Interstate 70 over the next week and a half. The first was Wednesday. The next is Friday, October 13th at exit 133 in Dotsero. Troopers will be enforcing the state's chain laws and educating drivers about them. The Colorado DOT requires that commercial vehicle drivers traveling on I-70 between mile markers 133 and 259 carry chains from September 1st through May 31st each year. Fines for not carrying chains during that time frame are $50 plus a $17 surcharge. The fine for not chaining up while the chain law is in effect is $500 plus a $79 surcharge. The Connecticut Department of Transportation is investing in technology to tamp down on wrong-way drivers. Wrong-way signs and caution lights started going up at numerous on-ramps throughout the state this week. Those signs and lights are triggered first. If a car keeps going up the highway in the wrong direction, state police get notified. The Connecticut DOT says 2022 was its deadliest year for wrong-way crashes, with 23 people killed. That's more than 3 times the number of people killed the year before. In response, the state legislature earlier this year voted unanimously to tackle the problem. Expect delays if your weekend route runs through Memphis. The Tennessee DOT is closing the I-55 Mississippi River Bridge for roadwork. The closure starting 8 p.m. Friday and scheduled to run all the way until 6 a.m. on Monday. Detours will be posted, but probably best to avoid the area if you can. A Kansas-based truck driver has some advice for the passenger vehicle drivers he shares the road with. Give us room. Ronald Mays sent the letter to the Kansas DOT, which then shared the letter in a blog post. Mays, a professional truck driver for more than 30 years, said four-wheelers are being operated by people who at times appear not to care about their health and safety or the health and safety of other people using the highways. His letter boils down to 3 tips for drivers of passenger vehicles. Mays wrote, quote, "Stay off my back end and don't tailgate. I can't see you. Stay off the phone when driving, especially around semis, and stay off my right side. I can't see you there either." A university student is being honored with a prestigious award for saving the life of a truck driver. In a news release, the Carnegie Hero Fund Commission says Sergeant David Duffy was on the Pennsylvania Turnpike a year ago this month when he saw a tractor-trailer swerve off the highway and then smash into a guide rail, concrete barrier, and overpass. Duffy, a member of the National Guard, pulled himself up through the passenger side window and pulled driver Shun Moore to safety. Moore was hospitalized but survived. Duffy was also hurt, but no one was burned. Duffy was one of 16 people recognized with the Carnegie Medal in the third quarter of this year. All risked serious injury or death to save others in need. Travel Centers of America and its customers helped raise nearly $153,000 for a charity that benefits truck drivers in need. The money came via TA's annual Roundup campaign. It now goes to the St. Christopher Truckers Development and Relief Fund, which provides help to truckers and their families when an illness or injury forces them off the road. Since the campaign started in 2010, TA has raised more than $3 million for the nonprofit. And finally, there's an effort underway in Florida to rename a stretch of highway after the late Jimmy Buffett. A Florida state rep filed the bill late last week. The bill aims to rename State Road A1A, which runs from Key West in the Florida Keys all the way up to Georgia. If the bill passes, parts of the highway would be renamed Jimmy Buffett Memorial Highway in specific counties. The singer died a month ago from a rare type of skin cancer. He was 76 years old. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Congratulations to John E. West of Sumter, South Carolina. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 17 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 128 years without causing a single accident. The OOIDA Safe Driving Award program is sponsored by Shell Rotella. If you'd like to join OOIDA, you can do it at a discount. Just call the membership department during business hours at 816-229-5791. You can join the association or renew your membership for 2 years for $50, a $40 discount. Next, I'll talk with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs Jay Grimes about a board that will look at replacing the fuel tax. And Scott Thompson updates us on the drivers who will haul the U.S. Capitol Christmas tree. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Attention all truckers, Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I want to talk to you about those dreaded tax problems. I know you want to keep on trucking and not even think about them, but let's face it, they're not going away all on their own. you need professional help. I've been helping truckers put their tax problems in the rearview mirror for years. I can help you too. Call me now for a free consultation at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com. It's like I always say, keep your eyes on the road, I'll keep mine on the IRS. 888-557-4020.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
The Federal Highway Administration is taking nominations for a new advisory board that could help the agency toward an entirely new system for funding federal highways. Welcome back to Landline Now. This is Regulatory Roundup, and I'm your host, Mark Reddig. I'm joined, as always, by OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. Jay, how are you doing?
Doing well, Mark. Good to be with you.
Well, good to have you here. And before we get to our topic, we do have a situation in Washington that affects pretty much everything that goes on, which is the Speaker of the House. What is the latest on this? What's going on right now?
Yeah, a historical day. Yesterday, the House of Representatives voted to remove Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House. The House cannot function without a speaker in place. So with the vacancy, the House has kind of gone home for the week and figuring out how the dust is going to settle. We've heard a couple names emerge as potential replacements, most notably current Majority Leader Steve Scalise from Louisiana and House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan from Ohio. So they're kind of working the members right now to try and see where their support stands. House is going to come back next week and try and come up with a new speaker, but any official business can't be completed until a speaker is named. So a little bit of uncertainty and kind of a big pause button right now in Washington.
Now, as I recall, it took more than a dozen ballots for McCarthy to be elected. Considering that and the time that it took, I mean, can they get a speaker in place before the deadline comes up for another government shutdown?
Well, yeah, we're going to be about 6 weeks away from the next deadline when they return next week, and you would hope they could get things in order by then. I think to get this thing wrapped up by next week might be a little optimistic, but yes, considering the 15 votes it took earlier in January and kind of the deals that were made then kind of took us to this point this week. So going to be sort of interesting and sort of a roller coaster ride to see what deals are made among House Republicans to try and get a new speaker in place before that November 17th funding deadline. Unfortunately for us, it kind of stalls the process of reintroducing our Fair Labor Standards Motor Carrier Repeal Bill Act, which would allow employee drivers to receive overtime pay.
Okay, well, a lot going on there, and I'm sure you'll have an update for us next week as well. In the meanwhile, let's get back to the Federal Highway Administration and this new advisory board that's going to be looking at some type of version of vehicle miles traveled. What exactly is the board going to do regarding that?
Right, and this, again, goes back to the 2021 Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which established a national vehicle miles traveled tax pilot program. The program itself has to be geographically diverse. It's going to include commercial vehicles, but also passenger vehicles, which was a big point of debate when this thing was being negotiated. We wanted to make sure that it did not specifically focus on only heavy-duty vehicles, and that ended up being the case with passenger vehicles being included. But to really figure out the nuts and bolts of how this pilot program is going to be executed, the Federal Highway Administration has established an advisory board which is going to develop recommendations related to the structure, scope, and methodology for developing the VMT pilot program. And this week, the FHWA has kind of opened up the applications for that advisory board. Really, the goal of this is to get a diverse representation, to have varying perspectives in determining how this pilot program is going to be set up. And a really important part of this, and another thing that we were successful in during the negotiation of that highway bill, was having a spot reserved for representatives of the trucking industry, including owner-operator independent drivers. So I want to make sure that truckers are represented on this advisory board to make sure that commercial vehicles aren't excessively targeted as part of this VMT pilot program that eventually is going to be established.
What are some of the concerns overall about vehicle miles traveled? I mean, it's not a concept without controversy, and we've talked over time about some of the concerns with it, but what are some of the chief concerns with that concept of funding highways?
Yeah, really that the economic burden is going to continue to be unfairly placed on commercial drivers who are, due to the nature of their work, spending more time on the road, building up more miles on their vehicles. And, we know that the trucking industry certainly pays their fair share into the highway trust fund through various user fees, whether that's the gas and diesel tax, the tire tax, heavy vehicle use tax, and I can go on and on down the line. And really, that's the main concern. There's other concerns about how you collect the vehicle miles traveled data, the tax paperwork that needs to be submitted. There's whole host of concerns, but really want to make sure that the trucking industry isn't continually excessively relied on to fill some of these funding voids due to depreciating returns from the gas tax. And, certainly, as I mentioned, truckers, we've supported highway user fees, but we want them to be fair and equitable. Because, again, we know all the fees that commercial drivers are paying that a whole lot of the highway users are not paying their fair share into.
Now, I know that this is the Federal Highway Administration looking into this, but correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't switching to VMT require an act of Congress?
Yes. So you'd have this pilot program in place, and then you would need some additional legislative authority as well. But that's going to be, years down the line, depending on all the data that's gathered from this national VMT pilot program. But to make sure that that's conducted in a proper manner, it's really important that this advisory board, is getting the input from the trucking industry on it. So important that we have some representatives apply for this advisory board, and the nomination period is going to be open through November 17th. Part of the application process is to provide your name, title, contact information, a letter of support containing a brief description of why a nominee should be considered, a short biography. And then there's some red tape as well if you're applying as an individual or a representative from a trade group or a federal lobbyist, and also have to commit to a 2-year term as well. And all the technical information is going to be on the Federal Register, which we will provide some information to. November 17th is the key date, and also you want to email these materials to nvpmf@dot.gov. So you've got the application period open, then DOT and FHWA will take some time to review all the applications, and then we'll create the advisory board, and the advisory board will meet for 2 years to kind of structure the VMT pilot program, which, again, glad to see that it's going to be all-inclusive and not specifically focusing on the trucks.
Well, let's go on to another topic here, and kind of also falls under things covered under the bipartisan infrastructure law. The Federal Highway Administration has made some significant funding available for bridges, and it really is a significant amount of funding, isn't it?
Yeah, no question, and that was really the goal of that major 2021 Infrastructure Investment Act. I think it was over $1 trillion in total to really investing in the nation's infrastructure. And this bridge investment program was a core piece of that. And according to the FHWA this week, they've made another $10 billion in funding available for bridges. The project itself is going to fund projects larger than $100 million. So really big-time investment, big-time programs. And the Bridge Investment Program was established by that infrastructure law. Specifically, a total of $40 billion over 5 years is going to go towards ensuring that the nation's most important bridges remain safe and operational, meet current and future traveler needs, support local economies, strengthen supply chains, and create good-paying jobs. So last year, I think we saw the program invested $2.4 billion towards the construction of 37 bridge projects in 29 different states. Kind of the most notable one was the about $1.4 billion on the Brent Spence Bridge connecting Kentucky and Ohio there on the Ohio River. So we're going to have more money going towards bridge projects like those. They did kind of tweak the application criteria a little bit to kind of make it more efficient, and some of those provisions include accepting of applications for fiscal years 2023 through 2026 in one application, kind of making it a little more streamlined there, updating the criteria to provide more direction to the applicants, as well as an updated smart application template that FHWA can kind of help them assist anyone who's filling out the applications, and then a new benefit cost analysis tool to, again, assist applicants as they apply for these grants. So really a whole heck of a lot of money going towards bridge improvements across the country. FHWA continuing to allocate that funding there, as well as making it a little more easier for applicants to get the grant applications in to FHWA throughout the next few years.
We've got a couple of minutes left, and there was one other topic that I know you wanted to get to, which is another meeting of the Truck Leasing Task Force. Very quickly, could you review what the task force is and what its mission is?
Yeah, again, back to the 2021 Infrastructure Investment of Jobs Act, which established this truck leasing task force to really examine these predatory lease purchase agreements that are unfortunately more commonplace than they should be within the trucking industry, really looking at their impact on potential new drivers, on owner-operators. Also going to look at general leasing contracts as well, and really develop some best practices there, and really hopeful that we're going to have some more federal oversight on some of these carriers and entities that are really taking advantage of drivers through these lease purchase schemes. The Truck Leasing Task Force was announced earlier this year, includes OIDA Business Services member Jim Jefferson. They had their first kind of introductory meeting a couple months ago, and now we have the second meeting that's going to take place on Tuesday, October 17th. So good to see the Truck Leasing Task Force established and continuing their important work.
Do we know what they have planned for this upcoming meeting, what topics they're going to cover?
Yeah, they've got one task that they've outlined. It's going to be considering common truck leasing agreements available to drivers of commercial motor vehicles and the existence of inequitable leasing agreements and terms in the motor carrier industry. So that's going to be kind of the main focus, a little general so far. Should have some more details once the public agenda is released before the meeting here in a couple weeks.
Okay. Well, Jay, we've run out of time, but I want to thank you very much for all the information. It certainly is helpful.
All righty. We'll see you next time.
I've been talking with OOIDA Director of Federal Affairs, Jay Grimes. And folks, once again, if you are wanting to apply or nominate someone for the Federal Highway Administration's VMT Advisory Board, the email address is nvpmf@dot.gov. Landline Now will be back in a moment.
Firestone tires are for more of everything. More miles for every tire dollar, and more confidence in your fleet. At Firestone, we help fleets save with dependable value. Find your local Firestone dealer today at firestonetire.com/dealer.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off TruckStop Loadboard Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2023 when you purchase Loadboard Pro.
When it's time to overhaul your truck engine, help protect it by insisting on a genuine Vibertech TVD crankshaft damper. Heavy duty, absolute premium quality, and they're made right here in the USA. Find a dealer at vibertechtvd.com.
Landline Now, welcome back. Year in and year out, Congress ushers in the holiday season with the tree lighting ceremony on the west lawn of the U.S. Capitol building. But before the massive tree can take center stage, it needs to be brought in from a national forest. Each year, a different company is selected for the honor, and this year that honor falls upon Werner Enterprises. Scott Thompson reports on the preparations already underway for the 4 company drivers picked to make sure that the U.S. Capitol Christmas tree, its ornaments, and companion trees get to their destinations in time.
Tim Dean has never done anything like this.
This is probably the longest thing I've ever hauled.
And neither has Jesus Davila.
No, I've you know, that was a big eye opener to hear how big the Christmas tree. I mean, you see it on TV and you see pictures of it, the Christmas tree standing in front of the Capitol, but you never really know the size of it because I've never been there.
But in a few weeks, Davila will be there in Washington, D.C. alongside Dean because they're the 2 people responsible for getting that big 63-foot Norway spruce from its current home in the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia to the west lawn of the U.S. Capitol. The 2 company drivers were selected by Werner to do the honors this year. This after Werner itself was selected to haul the tree from point A to point B. Both were pulled into a Zoom meeting along with fellow drivers Steve and Gina Jones, who we'll hear from in a few moments, where they found out they were the chosen ones this particular year.
What they did is set us up on a conference call, and I thought they were going to ask us to do the road dog show for driver appreciation. So when they actually told us why they wanted the 4 of us on a conference call, it's humbling. It's an honor and privilege to be able to represent not only Werner, but the trucking industry. Delivering a little tree to Washington, D.C. and, for Christmas is a big deal. What it resembles the birth of Christ. So there you go. Pretty awesome.
Davila admits he was surprised when word finally came down.
Shock. I was in shock at first. It was kind of one of those, I was listening to the call, and it didn't really register in my brain right away until, I guess all the wheels started turning and the opportunity to do something like this, that kind of event is once in a lifetime. So, the shock turned into excitement and to deliver the Christmas tree.
Davila normally hauls a temperature control unit for Werner. Dean currently hauls a 53-foot dry van. So to say this run will be out of professional character for both men is an understatement.
No, I've had the opportunity to be a little bit diverse, but right now I haul a 53-foot dry van. So this is a little tongue-in-cheek when you call it little because it is huge. I've been blessed to fly over there and actually visit with the National Forest people that are in charge of this and we looked at the tree and it's way up, it's big.
But Dean, who's been driving for Werner for 35 years and has 5 million crash-free miles under his belt, says he and Davila are up for the challenge.
Creates a little excitement to do something different. The challenge is there. At first, it was a little intimidating, but after going to West Virginia and going up on the mountain and seeing what we have to work with, I believe they selected the right drivers, Jesus and myself, to go retrieve the tree out of the mountain and do the tour.
Davila has a similar mindset.
There's nothing that's the same every time you get inside the truck and drive down the road. So this is just going to be another experience to make memories memories of and learn from and have that experience to speak of.
But Davila and Dean know there will be challenges. That comes with the territory when you're hauling anything that big, especially if you're not used to hauling something that big. But they'll have a good team leading them along the way, and they'll have each other.
Well, it's like I spoke with Tim a couple days ago. You can make as many plans as you want, but until you get on the ground and actually are doing the event, things can change in an instant. And then that's just like the military, you plan for everything, you plan for the worst, you train all year for stuff, different situations. And the minute that you get out outside the wire, things can change in a heartbeat. And that's the exact same thing that could happen here. So, going over as many different situations that could possibly happen and talking it out and understanding what we can do and what we will do to be safe on the road and get the tree to the different events. That's something that the communication between me and Tim is going on right now and will continue to go on up until the event. And then when we get on the event, we'll handle the situations as they come up and utilize all the assets that we have available to us, whether that's myself or him, spotting outside of the truck, and also the escorts that we have plenty of to help block traffic and get us around anything that comes up.
The confidence both men exhibit comes from knowing they'll be ready. Preparations have already begun.
Looking at the routes, definitely looking at the routes, looking at the stopping points, the different events that are taking place. Trip planning, it just never stops, especially for something like this, and talking with Tim regularly about maybe some areas that may get tight in some of the situations and how we can handle them. And, it's just trying to be as safe as possible while doing such a big event, and you can never prepare enough. So we're doing everything we can to take a look from every spot that we're going to be in and to be able to do this event safely.
Preparation is something Marine Corps veteran Davila is used to.
I was in the United States Marine Corps, retired medically. I was wounded in combat. I served in Afghanistan and Iraq. I was an infantryman, so I left high school at 18 and joined the military. And, everything that, when I speak to people, especially military service members, when I'm doing events and recruiting events for my company, we speak of the things that we learn in the military and how they transfer over into this industry. And that was a big shock to me when I came into this industry. The attention to detail, situational awareness, trip planning, stuff that you do every day, day in, day out in the military, especially being deployed overseas in combat. Do your pre-combat checks, pre-combat inspections. That's the same thing we do, while operating a commercial vehicle is you do your pre-trip inspection and you do your route trip planning, which is kind of like route overlays, for your patrols and stuff. So it played very well into this industry. So, having that background, kind of an attention to detail that I've learned over my years in the military, it helped out a lot.
Davila mentioned meeting up with members of the public. That's something he and Dean will be doing after picking up the tree in the coming weeks, making stops along the way at towns and cities where the public will get a chance to see the Capitol Christmas tree up close. That's the one thing Dean says he's most looking forward to.
We're going to do a 13-day tour, which that brings the challenging part, the exciting part, but we will have escorts of the law enforcement that will be, we're not in a rush. It's going to be a positive experience. And for the folks of West Virginia to get out and see this tree that come from their forest is a pleasure to be a part of it and, bring some happiness because, we spend as professional drivers, we're delivering the goods that people need. This is something that will give happiness to the locals as well as to Capitol Hill and have it displayed there, reminding us of Christmas. That it's pretty awesome.
I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a great opportunity to showcase, what professional drivers do on the daily across America. Warner Enterprises motto is "We keep America moving," and this is just another opportunity to showcase that with this we're keeping the country going, and we're doing a service for our country, and meeting the people and seeing the faces, especially the children, knowing that tree came out of their state and forest that they may have visited or went camping at. It's just that joy of seeing excitement from the people that we're going to be meeting is going to make everything worth it.
The big tree gets most of the headlines, but there's another aspect of the U.S. Capitol Christmas tree festivities that sometimes gets overlooked. We mentioned Steve and Gina Jones earlier.
We just can't express how excited we are, humble, grateful.
Just a huge honor to be selected.
The husband-wife driving team for Werner was also on that Zoom call where they found out they'll be transporting and delivering thousands of handmade ornaments made by West Virginians, along with smaller trees for military families stationed at Joint Base Andrews. Like Dean and Davila, the Joneses were surprised.
Well, since we're road team captains in Operation Freedom Fleet as well, we thought maybe it was going to be Annie's special event somewhere. And it sure did turn out to be a special event for all four of us. When Steve and I found out what the dates were, when we were going to head out, Steve and I kind of looked at each other and thought, oh, no, we're supposed to be going on vacation that time. And we kind of just looked at each other, didn't say anything, and waited until we got off the phone and said, we're not going on vacation. This is more important. And we are so excited to be a part of this team that will be delivering all the goods and everything. So we're so excited.
Needless to say, Steve and Gina rescheduled their trip to Mexico for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and now they wait.
We haven't been given details on the start location yet, but we've been told it's going to roughly take about 3 days, and then we meet up at Andrews Air Force Base with the Christmas tree. And I believe they're going to transload the ornaments onto the Christmas tree trailer, and then while we deliver the companion trees to Anderson Air Force Base.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that day to come. I can't wait to see all the smiles on the faces. We're hoping that the families are going to be there to get when the trees are delivered for them. It's just an exciting moment going to the base and during this time of year, and to deliver the trees and ornaments.
The pair, who mostly run retail across the country, have been driving together for as long as they've been married now, 12 years. So this is yet another experience they get to share together. Steve is an Army vet, and both he and Gina say they're most looking forward to their visit to Joint Base Andrews.
Well, for certainty would be the actual delivery onto Joint Base Andrews, because like I said, just seeing people and being able to deliver stuff that's going to mean so much to these families for the holiday season, Christmas season, is what I'm looking forward to.
Yes, I'm just looking forward to being a part of it, being a part of the Christmas tree event. We would love to go to see the lighting of the Christmas tree. I think it's like the following week after or so. But just to see the smiles and how grateful we are to be a part of this. Our company is family to us, and we enjoy what we do as being a professional driver, delivering the goods to our nation. So this is a wonderful experience and once in a lifetime.
The experience will begin before long. Still no word on when the big tree will get plucked from Monongahela National Forest, but the public events start on November 4th. That's when well-wishers along the route will get to see the wrapped-up 63-foot tree and take part in those community events. For updates, check out the U.S. Capitol Christmas Tree Facebook page. For Landline Now, I'm Scott Thompson, and we're back right after this short break. Stick around.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. There are a number of critical questions you need to answer in order to run a successful trucking business. Among the most important of those questions are, where's the freight going to be, and how much is it going to pay? Today, Landline Now senior correspondent Ashley Blackford will bring us answers to both of those important questions with a look at this week's freight markets with the folks from DAT. Here's Ashley now with the report.
Thanks, Mark, and hello once again to Robert Rouse with DAT. How are you doing today, Robert?
I'm doing great, Ashley. Thanks for asking.
Now, as shippers and retailers closed out the third quarter last week, how did that impact the spot market?
Yeah, absolutely. Last week, we saw just under a 10% increase in total load volume from the previous week to just over 1.374 million loads, which was good to see. The number of trucks on the DAT load board did decrease by around 8%, down to 358,000 trucks. We're still seeing lower volumes than in 2019, but we're within a couple percentage points of that load volume. And all of this is fairly expected for the end of the quarter as there's more freight available in the market. The big event that all drivers really should be watching is the UAW strike. In freight markets where the distribution centers are located related to the UAW strike, dry van outbound load post volumes were up 9% week over week after being flat all month the rest of the time. And inbound load post volumes into those same markets were up 8% week over week. There seems to be a flurry of activity in these markets. There could be a variety of different factors that are affecting these markets, but the UAW strike seems to be one of them that is really having an impact. When we look at the overall strength of the spot market last week, we saw loaded truck ratios increase for all three equipment types. When we look at vans in particular, spot market load posts increased by 14% week over week as shippers really cleared their docks with end of the month and end of the quarter freight. Load post volumes are still about 31% lower than they were this time last year. And carrier equipment posts followed typical seasonal patterns, dropping by about 7% week over week. And that resulted in last week's dry van loaded truck ratio jumping by 22% up to 3.07. And that's only the fifth time the loaded truck ratio has been over 3 this entire year. Looking at the rates, national benchmark broker carrier spot rates without fuel increased for all three equipment types. And spot rates are up. We believe that this is driven by end of month quarter shipping volume gains. We're not ready to read too much into last week's increases, as that is potentially the main reason, and we might see some leveling out of that. The spot market is still rolling along the bottom, and rate movement is very similar to what we saw prior years for week 39, and continues to shift sideways as approximately the same level that we've been seeing for about the last 2 months.
Which freight markets should owner-operators consider when searching for loads in the upcoming weeks?
Yeah, as we move deeper into the fall season, we're definitely seeing some markets that are performing pretty well. When we dig into the DAT market conditions map, we can clearly see that the Pacific Northwest has been hot for all three equipment types, but especially for reefers and flatbeds. Well, we've talked about the fall produce regions for the reefers in the last couple of weeks. I think it's a good time to talk about how flatbed freight in these markets are actually performing. And luckily, this is a topic I know quite a bit about. Construction is a huge driver for flatbed freight volumes. Residential housing is a major part of this sector. So newly built single-family properties comprised a record share of homes on the market in the second quarter of this year. And those are making up nearly 1/3 of the housing inventory nationwide, according to the research from Redfin. New home sales typically make up only about 10% of the market, but low inventory levels of existing homes have kept demand pretty solid for brand new homes, even as the industry grapples with rising mortgage rates, elevated construction costs, and limited lot availability. Existing homeowners have also been pretty reluctant to sell because they can't afford to give up their current low mortgage rates. Following July's surge in single-family home construction, the number of new homes started in August only dropped about 4.3% month over month, according to the latest release from the U.S. Census Bureau. For permits to build, viewed as the leading indicator for future construction, the seasonally adjusted annual rate of new permits last month was just over 5% higher than it was in August of last year. In the Southeast region, which accounted for about 63% of single-family homes started last month, volumes were actually increased by 8% month over month. So even though there's still some stress in the market, we're still seeing new homes being built in major cities all around the country. The Pacific Northwest is home to the top 2 states, Oregon and Washington, for softwood lumber. Softwood lumber comes mostly from pine or fir trees, and this is where we get a lot of our structural lumbers made out of all those softwoods. Also, a lot of plywood, OSB, things like that are used for roofing materials and other exterior materials for the housing. Is all made out of softwood. While logging operations slow way down in late fall, most lumber mills keep a stock of logs to keep manufacturing operating all throughout the winter. That said, mills will use the upcoming months during holiday weeks to have extended downtime to do preventative maintenance on their equipment. And so what happens is the entire plant will shut down, and for about a week or two, usually around Thanksgiving and Christmas, no lumber is actually moved out of those plants as everybody's focused on the machinery.
Since we've seen freight volumes fluctuate over the past few months, how can owner-operators ensure they're getting the best opportunities?
You know, it's all about the art of negotiation. When you call the broker for their loads, they have the upper hand and the data to negotiate that rate as low as they can. And you're really coming into it without all the information you need. However, you have a lot more negotiating power when you're receiving a call from a broker that needs your services. So how do you get brokers to call you and want your service? The biggest thing is posting your truck. A lot of carriers don't want to post their truck. They worry that they'll get bombarded with too many calls. However, posting your truck with as much detail as possible shows and helps the broker understand what they're particularly getting and if it's a likely match to the load they're trying to move quickly. So what goes into an effective truck post? It's pretty simple. The first thing is adding the right equipment type. That's one of the things that we hear a lot from both brokers and carriers is that the load postings or truck postings don't have enough information to make it more accurate. So be specific about your equipment specs and capabilities. If you're a flatbed carrier or have a specialized trailer or tarps or chains or experience hauling a particular commodity or under really demanding road conditions, put all that in the description when you post your truck. Really, it's an advertisement for how good you could solve a broker's problems. Also include your desired destination when you post your truck. A lot of truckers will leave this destination field blank because they don't want to limit themselves and will go anywhere for the right amount of money. While that could be true, but it also opens the door to receiving calls from brokers for problem loads that they aren't getting calls on. The ones that are hard to cover because the rate is too low or going to a market that no one wants to go to or both. And who wants to get calls from brokers about their problem loads? Let brokers know what rate you want to make and have that all out there. When you post a rate on a truck posting, it's really a starting point in the negotiation. That's one of the common misconceptions is that carriers might think by posting their rate that that's actually what they are getting. It really just lets the broker know that you are in the same ballpark. And once they provide the lane information, you can adjust your rate accordingly based on the demand. So, if it's going in a very hot market and it's above what your kind of average rate would be, then you can definitely respond back and say, hey, that's, a higher lane right now. So it's going to be this amount. And then you are coming at it with the data, and it really helps in that negotiation process. Lastly, you can use the comment section of your truck post to add any additional information that might be helpful. Posting your available truck can especially be useful in markets where demand is high. Once your truck is posted, brokers can call you on loads they need moved really quickly rather than the other way around.
All right, Robert, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ashley.
That was Robert Rouse with DAT. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Ashley. That's our program for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
Chrome, and I am a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us.
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit ooida.com.